All right, welcome back. This is Inside Pages. And so what we intend to do now, we're going to be playing you back some of the scenes of what has happened this week. I'm talking about the individual bondholders, the meeting at the finance ministry, etc. Watch this.
A delegation of the Individual Bondholders Forum, led by one of the conveners, lawyer Martin Kpegbu, made a call to the Ghana Catholic Bishop Conference to intervene in the government's implementation of the Domestic Debt Exchange Program. According to lawyer Martin Kpegbu, the government has gotten its priorities wrong.
Our members are in dire straits. This is not a joke at all. I mean, you look at the numbers in terms of what we have to shoulder, and you see that without the coupon payments, which our members have been relying on, this is going to be a matter of death, mass death for our members if this program is made to see a successful end. That is to say, if government implements it. Put in another way, Most Reverend Jemfi, we rely on the coupons to be able to pay our bills. Yes, we rely on the coupons. That's the interest that the government pays on the bonds to be able to pay our bills. That if you look in the budget, there's a lot of money. But government has gotten its priorities wrong. That is the fact. There's money in the budget. Government says they want to do capital expenditure. And we are saying no. Government can't be held to say that. Article 36 of the Constitution says that, yes, by all means, government can develop. But when you are developing, make sure that the maximum welfare of the citizens is guaranteed.
The president of the Ghana Catholic Bishops Conference, Most Reverend Matthew Kwesi Jemfi, had this to say.
We will assure you that we will not betray your trust. We will send it to the appropriate quarters. And if possible, they give us audience. We will discuss most of the matters you have raised up here with them. And you will see and ask and request and plead that they give listening ears to your pleas and your suggestions. To the hearing of all Ghanaians, what is the government doing? Why is he treating us this way? Why is he coming this place? And what justifications is he giving for that?
Individual bondholders in the country make up about 6 million Ghanaians with a total amount in government bonds of some 8 billion Ghana cedis.
Speak to my former constituents. My policy positions are always thought through on a balanced scale. You always have to think about other people and look at what's functional. Like I told the minister, I own businesses that are negatively affected by it. I am an unemployed graduate. And as an unemployed graduate, if my businesses are negatively affected by it, it is a big deal. But considering the challenges he has at hand, I've accepted and authorized my businesses to subject themselves to this DDE. My problem is that you can't extend that to individuals because the implications are catastrophic. If you put it at a bank, you have come up with some forbearances, financial stability fund. You are giving them options. There is no option for your hunger. There is no option for your inability to pay for your dialysis. The option is go a-begging. There's no option for all the work you have done to throw your dignity away when it's no fault of yours. What crime have they committed? None. So Exodus 5:1. Can you finish it for me? Thank you very much. As you see, there was another group called the IBAG. They've also joined. That's the Martin People group. They've also joined, and we are one. So we've come here together as one family.
We didn't see the pension bondholders.
I do not have any reasons for it, but in our association, we also represent pensioners. Our conveners also has a pensioner. Today you saw Larry Giage, who is also part of our group, who is a pensioner. So the fight can be fought on different front together alongside, whatever it is. The only thing is for us to alleviate this impending pain for the average Ghanaian.
The finance minister is asking.
It's about the facts and the figures. I'm an economic policy analyst. I'm a financial policy analyst. I'm a structured finance engineer. Done all kinds of deals in my life. So I've spent time to really think this through. It doesn't mean that alternative ideas may not be there. But at the end of the day, the call will not be mine. We can actually come up with great ideas. And we'll put it before the currently over 220 or 217,000 members that we currently have. I don't know the number by the time I get home. But you can see, this matter has become an I-read matter. Sika Yemoja.
All right, thank you.
All right, so you heard him. He says, Sika Eye Moja. Okay, so the man himself is here with us in the studio. That's Mr. SENYO HOSI. He's the convener of the Individual Bond Holders Forum. Remember that we used to have two. We had Individual Bond Holders Association and the forum. Now they've merged. That's the understanding that we have. And so SENYO HOSI is with us here. He's a very good friend of the media. He's joined us this morning to throw some more light on why he and his group are kicking against government's exchange program. I'll introduce him first. So this show is going to take two forms. The first form, or the first part, is that we're going to have, as I did indicate, the man whom you're familiar with, that's Mr. Joe Jackson of Dalex Finance. He's going to be walking us through the whole 9 yards, how this whole thing started and where we are. And then Mr. SENYO HOSI will come in and tell us how so far him and his group have been dealing with government's, government's dealings with them. And then also, there's another man here in the studio, that's Mr. EDGAR WIREDU. He is a insurance marketer and also a financial policy analyst. He's also with us here. So first of all, SENYO HOSI, good morning. Good to see you. How are you? And please switch your microphone on. I'm told that microphone, yes.
I said it's a pleasure to be in your studios for the first time. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, and we hope that it's going to be the first and the last.
Yeah, I'll do well. You say I have biases, I don't.
Those are supposed to be off-record conversation. Well, anyway, Mr. EDGAR WIREDU, good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah, bro. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Unfortunately, I haven't had a haircut yet, and I'm not hoping to have a haircut. You haven't shaved yet. I'm wondering what's happening to you.
I'm trying to make sure I strategize for my own.
he needs to leave some hair so that his head will not be cut.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. In my case, I'm going to have a head cut. He wants to leave so I can get a haircut.
I know. I was telling Mr. Jackson this morning that I heard Franklin Kujo say that his funds have been decapitated. It's not funny, folks. I mean, it's not. It's a very serious issue, and that's why these experts are here to walk you through why this matter is very serious and needs all the attention that it requires. And also, Mr. Joe Jackson, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
I think the first time you're coming here this year.
This year, my challenge is that Happy New Year I can respond, but I can't, when I say prosperous, then my mouth is shaking a bit.
Well, it's understandable.
But
it's understandable. Well,
once you're alive, there's hope.
Right. Very interesting times. Now, what we intend, what you're going to be doing for us this morning is that you're going to walk us through. Okay, so first tell us, what presentation do you have for us this morning?
The key presentation is, there's a lot of talk about, for example, why the Bond Holders Forum disagrees, why this person disagrees.
Right.
What I'll try to do today, in a few short moments, is actually tell you what is being proposed that makes these guys so angry that somebody says we will die. You heard from retiree. We've heard from Larry Jagi.
Yes.
We've heard from lawyer Martin Kebu.
Yep.
And all of them are talking about. So what is it? What is that? There's I think a 15-page document that summarizes this. I'm going to try and do this using a few diagrams to explain why it seems to hit them so hard.
Okay, so we can't wait. Let me share the WhatsApp line whilst you go closer to the touch screen to do your presentation about the exchange program. So The WhatsApp line is 0249155646. 0249155646. That's the WhatsApp line. If you have any contributions or questions for Mr. Joe Jackson, please feel free to ask him. So here we go. Ghana's Domestic Debt Exchange Program, DDE. Joe Jackson. All right, so we go. But I like the, what's that? I can see some Caesars in the background.
No, it's the Caesars that the barber displays before he gives you a haircut. But let's go on. Listen, you got to start from the premise that this government is broke. Ghana is broke. There's no cash. You got to start from that. Whatever, we've borrowed so much that we can't pay. And at this point, we have lifted up our hands, told our those foreigners that we owe, and those that we owe domestically, to say, there's no way we can pay our debts. And it is also true that we've gone to a big brother, the IMF, to say, come and stand behind me. I'm so neck deep in debt that I can't pay. They come and stand behind me and try and help me negotiate with my creditors to give me more time and maybe even reduce how much they owe. The challenge is that the IMF now says, but I want to see how much you owe. And I want to make sure that even if I stand behind you, you can pay. And that's what they call the debt sustainability analysis. After the debt sustainability analysis, it seems like the government is now pushed to say to domestic creditors, you give me space, otherwise I can't meet that hurdle.
Okay.
So, two things. One, we are broke, we can't pay. We need to bring it into a certain
range
before we can even get the IMF to come in. And that's why the deadline is looming so large. But at the end, one of the questions I hope we will ask is that, is this the only way to do it?
Right.
So let's start. What did the government propose? It says, all bondholders, including ESLA and DAXI, put together all I owe in bonds. I will take the ones and the differentiate between the ones maturing in 2023 and the ones maturing after. This is what it says. All these bonds, I'll put them together and I'll give you a haircut. What's that haircut? Now, these represent years. 2023, 2024, 2025, all the way to 2038. Now, here's the first challenge you face. It says, if you have bonds that were maturing this year, I won't pay you. Now, it's important at this point to explain that there's a difference between you giving your government the money, lending the government money as a bond, and you taking your money to a financial institution like a bank or to Delex or whatever. When you hit a cash flow crisis, when you need money, normally you go to the institution and say, hello, can I have my money back? It says, oh, but you said you give it to me for 1 year. It says, oh, no, I need it. You go back to them. When you have a bond, you cannot go back to the institution that gave you the paper. You have to find someone to sell it to. So if you lend the government 100 cedis in bonds, you cannot go back to the government and say, give me back my 100 cedis. You have to find somebody to buy it off you at whatever rate. So it says, those bonds that were going to come, I was going to pay in 2023. 2023, I won't pay anything. 24, nothing. 25, nothing. 26, nothing. So if I had the 100 CDs here, 1, 2, 3, 4 years, I won't pay you. Even then, in 27, Of that 100 cedis, I'll only pay you 15 cedis. 28. Of that 100 cedis, I'll pay you what? Another 15 cedis. 29, 14 cedis. Till you get to 33, when I'll pay 14 cedis, and I'll have paid the 100 cedis. Now here's the first issue. So you take my 100 cedis, you owe me. You're supposed to, we have an agreement that you pay me 100 cedis today. And you say you won't pay, you start paying in 27, 15 cedis, 28, 15 cedis, all the way to 33, 14 cedis. Now using my 100 cedis example, if today I give you 100 cedis, you can buy a bag of cement. If I told you, give me that bag of cement, and I'll pay you 15 cedis in 4, 5 years' time, 6 years' time, all the way to what? Sorry. 10 years. What would you say? I like to say this in tree because he explains it. I say Mexican. That's really what the guys are angling about. Right. Because you see, I was expecting 100 cedis. I'm not getting it for 4 years. And when I get it in bits spread over the next 10 years. That's not the worst part. This year, that 100 cedis you gave me, you gave that I'm supposed to pay interest, right? And the interest spans from some as low as 15, some go all the way up to 20. This year, I'll give you 0. So not only am I not getting my 100 cedis, even the interest, this year, I'll get 0. Next year, 2024, I'll give you 5%. Then it gets a little bit more complicated, and this kind of gets complicated. Then it says that in 25, of the 15 cedis that I was going to give you in 27, I'll be giving you 9% until 27. In 25, of the 15 cedis I was going to give you in 28, I'll give you 9% per annum to 28. And it goes on till 33, where you get 9.9%, 9.9%. So this is the crux of the matter. If I was a pensioner and I had 100,000 cedis, 10,000 cedis, whatever, 100 cedis, this money has been broken down into 2 bits, small bits over 10 years. And for this year, I'm not getting any interest. That's where the issues are. Anyway, they are kind to you. They say, you know what? All this is cool. I'll give you, for those maturing in 2022, this year I'll give you 2% of the amount so that it will cushion you. So maybe you can say, this first year, they're not giving you 0 anymore. Now they are offering, the initial offer was 0. Now I'll give you 2%. Only for, no, I haven't come to the bonds. Remember, this is only for bonds maturing in 2023. So this is the issue. You take my 100 cedis. You don't want to pay on time. You want to spread it. Then you don't want to pay me the interest you agreed. This is the haircut. Now imagine if I was a bank, if I was an insurance company, and I had put money in these bonds. It means that as I sit for my liquidity to manage my affairs, I was expecting 100 cedis in, or 100 million, choose one. This year, I won't get it. I only get an interest payment. I won't get it in 24. And I'll get small amounts of money. Now this is, and we put it in perspective, for corporates like banks and insurance companies, this is not their money. This is a depositor's money. That the depositors are expecting a return. If you take the weighted average return at 10%, not only am I just getting 2%, I'm also going to have to pay 10%. So I'm making a loss of 88%.
That's serious.
That's serious.
Very serious.
Now, put this in perspective. We have 181 billion as domestic debt as at September 2022. The banks have 33%. That's something like 60 billion. Now, if you say they're going to lose 8%, right? They're going to lose something like 4.8 billion. That is why the Association of Bankers is saying, don't sign. This is hard. Let's move on. For the bonds that mature after 2023, the story is slightly different, but not that much different. Again, the bonds are there. They are put together into a haircut. This time, remember, for those that are maturing in 2023, they stretched it up to 33. For this one, they are stretching it a lot more. So, for 15 years to 2038. Now, here's the catch. If you had 100 cedis, that was due you, they will give you in 27 9 cedis, 28 9 cedis, 29 9 cedis. Then, by the time you get to 32, 8 cedis, 33, 8 cedis, all the way to 38. So you take my 100 cedis and you spread it over 15 years. You don't even, there's no point you reach even 10 cedis. You're spreading it. The interest is the same. Nothing has changed. Except for this one, even the 2% that they were going to give you, they won't give you. So for this one, truly, in 2023, you get 0. So SENYO has bonds. He has plans. Anything from taking a child to school, to starting a business, to even nursing it and chopping the interest small, or paying back a loan.
Yeah.
Now that's interesting because yesterday, in one of the institutions I'm involved in, they have a loan that is due lump sum in July of about 17 million. And they had created a sinking fund where they put the money in every now and then. And in order for the money not to just sit idle, they had bought bonds, thinking that they are cool. Come July, they go for the money that is there. Even if it needs a little top up, they pay their lump sum. Today, as we sit, the issue is they are facing a default in July. Because now, for that 17 million they owe, they have to find something like 3 million a month to put aside between now and June. This is dire. Thank you, SENYO, for that example, because it allowed me to really illustrate to pay back a loan. So you know you owe money. And for insurance company, I have a policy that is due next year. The insurance company in its plans knows, I have some bonds. Some will come due next year. And when Mr. Jackson comes for his policy, we'll use it to pay him. I'm waiting to hear from them because they will have a liquidity issue. And they have to find a way around it. Because me too, I need my cash, don't I? But this is the problem. And this is why the individual bondholders are up in arms. And bear in mind that it's not just an issue of the individual bondholders. It's also an issue to do with what do you call it? The corporates,
Institutional bondholders.
institutional bondholders, because they also face all sorts of pressures. Same thing, right? And it's grim. Listen, right now, we say treasury bill holders and pension fund holders are not affected.
Right.
Sounds cool. Cool. Let's move on. But individual bondholders are in a constituency that are affected. And corporate bondholders like banks, asset managers, and insurance schemes. But guess who else is affected? If you invested in a corporate collective investment scheme, right? So I took my money to an asset manager, and he has a unit trust fund, some sort of fund where they pool our funds together and buy these bonds. It's going to affect me. Because what's going to happen is that they are also going to get a haircut, and they have to pass it on to me. After all they said was that I'll pull your funds together and invest it. If you make profits, we share. If we don't make profits, at least I pass the losses back to you. So that's where the problem comes, that let not everybody think that this is only a matter to do with SENYO HOSI and co. If you have money in any of the asset management companies, Data Bank, EDC and co, apart from your challenges of mark to market, which has reduced your money, this is also coming to hit you. I like to, you don't have liquidity, you don't have money. You don't have money. That's simple. Because you're expecting 100 CDs, you're not getting. You're expecting some interest, you're not getting. You also don't have, it's going to hit you your profits. Because if you don't have the liquidity, you have to go and borrow to make it up. When you borrow to be at that cost, even as we sit with the fund that is proposed, you still have to borrow from that fund. And remember that as we sit, MPC rates are 27%. So it's unlikely this fund will come in anywhere below MPC rates.
Right.
And the time value of money, that's what is killing you. That's the true cost. Because you take my 100 CDs that can buy a bag of cement today and split it. That's the problem. So, I call this man Gerard Asamoah, but today I'll call him SENYO HOSI.
Well, I think that Edgar looks more like him.
Edgar, he's distraught.
Edgar relates much better to that.
Yeah,
because he's lost money. I call this man, this is Alfred. He works in a mine, good guy. Save some 20,000 CDs and put it in a collective scheme. He's gone. The only person who may be surviving is Amaka Kraba, because her pensions have now been excluded.
Right.
But we are all in trouble. I have a few questions for you. See how angry, is it Edgar or SENYO is? I have a few questions for you.
No, this one might be SENYO because he's scattered.
Why am I the one?
The question is, why is he paying?
I didn't go over, he's a scattered human being already.
Why is he paying the debt? What is the problem? Why is he the one paying the debt? What about the other constituencies? And why do I ask this? This money was borrowed for Ghana. So in a sense, because he went to parliament and was approved, well, all of us can't claim that we don't know anything about it. So why is he paying? Then even more important, is there no alternative?
The DDP.
There should be an alternative.
Right.
I'm done.
You're done. Okay.
Yes.
So these are very legitimate and very important questions. But let me come back to SENYO HOSI now. SENYO, I know you have about Let's say you can grant about some 15, 20 minutes before you take leave of us, because Senyo has to attend to some of the very, very important engagements. So Senyo, where are we now? I mean, we know that the whole of this week, so starting Thursday, you had a meeting with the finance minister, and you're supposed to have had another meeting yesterday. Would you say the meeting, so first of all, can you confirm if the Friday meeting came off?
That was not Friday. I think it was Thursday.
It was Thursday? Because you're supposed to have met on Friday.
We met on Thursday.
Oh, Thursday.
We met the minister on Wednesday, and then we had a technical committee meeting.
It's on Thursday.
On Thursday. Okay. Yesterday, we received a draft report.
Right.
So we're working on that today.
Would you say so far the meetings have been productive?
I think it's been productive. It's worth having other parties on the table. So
right.
being on the table to discuss, to understand each other, it's a necessary feature of the policy development process. So right. I would admit it's been very, very, very fruitful. But a few things on what I don't agree with Joe when he says that the country is broke.
It's broke.
See, it depends on how you define this whole broke thing. I mean, bankruptcy is your inability to access cash for your operation. It's not the fact that you are making losses. Just get it right. People get it wrong. You can actually have a negative asset position, but if you have financiers continuously believing in your business and funding and giving you cash, you are not bankrupt. And you could actually have a positive asset position, net asset position. And if you can't access cash to continue operations, then you are bankrupt.
True.
You know, when you look at the Ghana situation, what's our debt service requirement? And look at our revenue. We have enough revenue to actually service our debt. So we don't have that problem where you say Ghana is, we're having challenges. We're in a crisis, agreed. But I don't think we are at that level where I cannot pay my debt. It's wrong. The thing is that we all have difficult times in life, like every family goes through. The question is, how do you reorganize your expenditure, your lifestyle to accommodate your current circumstances? When I can't fund my Nissan Patrol, I take the Mazda CX-5 and even drive it all the way to my farm, which I don't find ideal because I can't pay the petrol. You understand? So you know your difficulty, you are tight, you adjust your life. But it doesn't mean that you can't pay your debt. It means you have to now prioritize what kind of lifestyle you have. If you're a champagne drinker,
so as to make sure that at least
you can
at
adjust.
any given time you have something
little to survive.
On, yeah.
So that is the problem Ghana has.
Right.
We are not being responsible about our circumstances. We are not optimizing the resources that we have.
Right.
And that is putting us in a crisis. And when we have to fix it, instead of us looking at our lifestyle, to adjust our lifestyle, all we want to say is that the person who has actually lent us money is the one who should only suffer. You definitely may have to have some engagement. Some kind of restructuring may always be. But it really starts with your lifestyle. You understand? And that's the problem we have. Look at our revenue. I'll take last year, with your permission. Let's look at the budget this year. Our total revenue and grants is at 143.9 billion, almost 144. Let's go to the financing section and look at amortization provision. Amortization provision is what? 22 billion, which particularly is going into our debt service.
Okay.
All right, on the principal part, because you are actually having the domestic financing and then the foreign financing cost, which will be the interest, also provided for in the primary budget. So like in a business, that's your profit and loss account. And this one really is your cash flow account. So we have provisions in there, but it still leads us to a deficit. If you are in a debt crisis, or you want to claim you have become broke, it doesn't mean that you can't pay your debt. The question here is that you have to now deal with your debt problem. The IMF has a problem with Ghana. Our debt sustainability doesn't look encouraging. They're asking us to land at 55% at a given point in time. Now the question, what's going to our debt sustainability? Government has been announcing a 70%, 76%, sometimes 80% public debt to GDP ratio. We all hear that. And I tell people, stop talking about GDP. Nobody eats GDP.
Well, finally, they say it's 105.
Is it? No. So I said before this.
Oh, before this.
Yeah,
right,
this all you've been hearing.
Yeah, 76%.
And that's why I said there's always data massaging in this country.
Right.
Data massaging. May the good Lord touch the lives of all the people in government. All of you repent in Jesus' name.
Amen.
If you knew it was 105, you knew that you had general government debt levels, and you were never reporting it for investors to be informed. You need to be punished, and at the right time, we will have to call for people's heads to roll. But let's deal with where we are as of yet. So you have the public debt, which is often the debt sitting on central government. It does not even include other kinds of debt, which is what we do call arrears, where maybe contractor haven't paid you. What they call debt is the one that you sign a loan agreement of some sort, and that's what they actually factor in, or you went for a bond, you issue a bond, which actually is also a loan agreement. That is when they factor it into the central government public debt. But there's a broader term called the general government public debt, which now has to bring all the people that you owe. Then you also have to add your state-owned enterprises that whatever happens, you have to underwrite their risk. When Cocoa Board goes down, government has to pay. But we say Cocoa Board is an independent entity.
Interestingly, so we've been debating this matter for the longest time. Because there are two schools of thought. Some say you can't add that to the government.
It's a lie.
Central.
It's a lie.
No,
It's a lie. It's a lie.
I don't think that is subject to debate.
Let's not waste our time. I'm begging you, don't let us waste our time. You know, we are very educated people in this room, so don't waste our time. Let's waste our time. You know, look. So this is your debt.
Right.
So IMF say if you come, don't give me this your what do you call it? This your fake public debt position. Let's see what your real debt is. So that's when you talk about a general government debt. So you bring in Cocoa Board. You look at the energy sector, all the entities that at the end of the day, government has provided a direct or indirect contingent guarantee. And government has a responsibility to pay.
Contingent liability.
That contingent liability is almost in your face because you are the one who is also the directing mind of these entities. So the thing has come. Like Cocoa Bills yesterday, we all heard what happened.
Yep.
If Wala gas, government must pay. And that's what's going to happen. When you put all together, you now realize that you have highly debt distressed country. That's where we get to our 104, 105 whole picture. So in this crime is the lifestyle of the state-owned enterprises. Is the lifestyle of our central government. And these two people, when you have to fix it, should be the people who should be leading in how we fix it. So you take our budget today, we are going to run a deficit of about 61 billion. The question you should ask yourself, when you are broke, you want to fix your debt, but IMF says you should reduce your debt to GDP, and now they're talking about your general government debt. So the first thing you want to do is not to add to the debt. Unless you are getting in a productive debt that is making you go and generate more income quickly for you to pay.
Makes a lot of sense.
You understand? What have we done? We say we want to increase our debt. In our engagement with the finance ministry, they indicated to us that this was actually structured, the budget as we see it, was structured not with the fund program fully in mind. You know, as in the debt structure, restructuring factored in there. So that's why you have higher provisions for interest and all that. Okay, we take note of that. But definitely the fund provision was there. Because you see an IMF, SDR line, that brings you to about 64 billion that is supposed to fund the deficit. You understand? So it tells you that the government wants to live its life the way it wants to, but wants everybody else to pay for its own crimes. That's the irony of it. The first thing you should ask yourself, if government says, I want to balance my budget for the first time, it means that I will not grow the debt for the first time.
Yeah.
And if it says, to balance the debt for the first time, you even need to say, I'm going to not spend more than I spent last year. So I'm going to keep my expenditure level just like last year. That one alone will save you about 54 billion. So if we say we're going to hold that line of expenditure and even try and keep increasing our revenue, meaning that we are creating productivity in the government sector. At a static expenditure, we are generating a lot more revenue. And we are increasing revenue at the same rate that government is looking at increasing the revenue. In 3 years, even government alone can pay off the domestic debt exposure.
True.
And we should practically be where we want to be. So the options that do not only lie in this place, because in the budget, the problems that you have in there is your interest expense. You want to cut expenditure, so you have interest expense. That is what government wants to do. I want to deal with my interest expense. Then it also wants to have to deal with the financing side. Let me deal with the real value of the debt by halving or practically reducing it by about 70%, indirectly, without telling you anything, because the real value of that money is slashed, as Joe was showing illustrating on the screen. That's the option government wants to go. I find that unfair. I find that not that responsible, and not responsible at all. You should be asking government, now with this, you should be leading the way. How are you readjusting your life for your sustainability? Because when all of us, we have difficulties in our home, we adjust our home. We adjust our home. If I can't take my children to Pinkberry twice a week, they will know that now you may go once a month. But at least you get something small. But you want to now increase your Pinkberry treat to every day and tell the person that you owe, say, Okafo Didi. Into what dear, wa mede okano, a common named you. So what nipa na abo busian, or no more than come what they're common no. That's why Wabobusian, I have a crowd of baby, we did more. There is a need for a proper restructuring of this entire approach to our sustainability. If you ask me, we need to take hard decisions which government is running away from, again because of the politics.
2024 is around the corner.
2024 is around the corner. And look at the capital expenditure. We have increased our capital expenditure by 76%. Does that look like somebody who is having financial difficulties? I mean, it's like you're having difficulties in your house. That's when you're actually ordering a Land Cruiser. You are struggling to pay school fees. You don't know how you are going to feed your children. But that's when you want to order a Land Cruiser. Everybody should think about it. If somebody owes you and you are struggling, and the guy is now releasing new cars, 2023 reg, how will you feel? Meanwhile, you yourself, who lends the guy money, your children are supposed to go to school. You are struggling to pay. You have medication to buy for your mother. You can't pay. But that person who owes you is now releasing 2023 reg. Rolls Royce.
That's very important.
That is the problem we have. Our fiscal leaders need to really rethink what they are doing. Now, another factor I think that we need to look at, in every economy, the supplier or provider of loanable funds, he will tell you, are households. Are households. The corporates that end up putting monies in the banks are taking their money again from households. Everything sits on the households. So the moment you crash confidence of households in the financial sector, on the financial system, you must well kiss your economy goodbye. That's why restructuring, when it's being done sustainably, the last place you're even trying to talk about are people down there. You look at the organized structures, because even communicating with them is complicated. Because you put in a circular and somebody will say treasury bills are involved. They say if maybe later they'll come for treasury bills. Meanwhile, you have an operation language. The people don't understand that language. They just trust the system. So you don't breach their trust. But what we are doing here, trying to involve individuals, we are breaching their trust. What is the conversation today? People are even scared of putting money in their banks. Am I lying or am I right?
No, you're very
people are asking questions. Yeah. Hey, so even the banks cry, what will happen?
Do you know how many calls I get a day asking me that are my funds in Delex? What is the haircut there? This has nothing to do with me.
You. So you see, there are so many. So there's a confidence problem that the communication around this, the policy decision around this has been absolutely suboptimal. And there stands the risk of creating a longer-term problem for all of us. Everybody is scared. Are we getting to Lebanon? These are the questions you answer. People now want to hold cash and keep their money in dollars and put it in a vault or in a safe. Now people are carrying mini banks across the country. When that also starts happening, everybody gets visibility that there are a lot of mini banks across the country. What happens next? Robbery.
Right.
We are going back. We are reversing this country without thorough thinking, without realizing that an economy is not just a spreadsheet where you are balancing some graphs and some tables and some rows and columns. We are missing that. Because the moment that Antiakos, Bra Kofi Menu, has lost confidence that his money in that bank is safe, that when he gives money to government, it is reliable. That moment, may as well start looking at Somalia. Stop looking at Lebanon. Lebanon is a nice case. Like Somalia, where people are holding cash and selling cash in barrels. That's the economy that we are looking at. But we won't get there. So we must start immediately rethinking and reforming our approach to this engagement. Knowing the places you don't touch. Don't touch the everyday Joe. That everyday Joe can understand market movements at best, but cannot understand that his money that is due today, he's not going to get his money today. That his interest that is supposed to get today, he's not going to get it. Now you've brought the Joe to understand that there's mark to market, so he may lose. Keep it that way and live your life there. Let's discuss at a broader level. But for all the things that we want to solve, the thing we want to cut, this match that we are looking at, if you take this domestic debt, you're going to save 23 billion cedis in this year. Ask yourself, without this domestic debt, looking at the budget, can't we save 23 billion? We want to increase our capital expenditure from 15.7 billion to 27 billion. Almost 12 billion coming in there. If we say we'll keep it as it was last year, haven't you already clawed back 12 billion out of this 23 billion? Yeah. Now we are looking at another 11 billion. Now you look at the transfers that we are having to other statutory funds. Everybody must give it in. Take a company like, an entity like MIF. I don't understand this MIF thing still. Unless, of course, it was just done for Ejapa, which will not happen. Ejapa will not happen. You are having close to 1 billion cedis that we are voting to another SOE. For what productivity? Those royalties used to come back and sit in the budget as part of our revenue for our expenditure. Look at GMPC. Look at how GMPC is itself running. Look at the SOEs. Go to Cocoa Board. Cocoa Board is practically been posting losses. And every day they adjust it by saying they are revaluing their assets. Any company that has to post profit by saying I readjust my asset should make you think. And Cocoa Board is supposed to be our foremost what do you call it? State-owned enterprise. One monopoly carrying a central part of the economy, which has been central for like forever since Gettysburg. Cocoa. All cocoa goes to Cocoa Board. Nobody else. So when a company like Cocoa Board is failing, then you know that you have a problem in your economy. You have a problem with your governance frame. You have a problem with the entire structure. That is why you go to the SOEs. We have to start changing what happens there. The Cocoa Board as it stands, as it operated, led by politicians, will not help anybody. That's why your cocoa bills will continue to be rolled over without your permission. The worst is yet to come and from Cocoa Board. Go and read their books. The only way Cocoa Board survives is through the central bank trying to actually fit in through its own overdrawn position that it gives it.
No, you're joking.
And that's the only way to survive. What else? That's why yesterday the money that the Bank of Ghana credited the banks came from central bank. But central bank says, I'm not doing this anymore. And this is the position. I commend the central bank for waking up. This is what you should have been doing many years ago. We wouldn't have had our problems today with central government. Because anytime government goes to the auctions and there's a shortfall, then the central bank covers it. So that the auctions never look like there's a failure.
Listen.
When that happens, that's why, let me give you the debt profile. You understand? The largest lender to government in this country right now is not these general corporates and all. It's central bank.
The central bank is holding 9% of all domestic debt.
That's
that's
a very serious thing.
Billion.
That is what Adongo was screaming and shouting and all. But you see, if central bank, when government was doing this thing, I said no. When you go to the auction, you fail. I'm not coming to bail you out. If they had done that, government would have been reprofiling its expenditure. It would have been cutting its coat according to the size of its cloth. But every time he goes to do 3-piece agbada, meanwhile, his thing is only 2 years. Then central bank will say, stop. Then it's like a tailor. Stop, and then take somebody else's cloth and just add it to you, and you always get agbada. The guy will still come and be arguing for 3-piece agbada. And that is the problem that we have. We haven't seen anything yet. We haven't seen anything yet. But we can change, and it needs us to change our attitude. Government must start leading in the reform of the state-owned enterprises, the reform of the readjustment of its fiscal position. Government should not plan to spend more than it spent last year. If it means cutting down on on the workforce, you have to. We have added 300,000 people to the public force, and this one does not include state-owned enterprises, unproductively. And who is paying for it? You're asking the people who lent you money to pay for it. The same people are the ones paying the taxes. Go to the state-owned enterprises and see the way we have loaded them. Bust, and here they are 1,000 now. But the last SOE report, which is 2019, we were about 500. But guess what? When Boss was built and these whole tanks were running with Adoyobo there, they were just about 70. And you go to MPA, you go to Ghana Gas, you go to VRA, you go to anywhere. Look, all the SOEs that have contributed to this particular problem must be on the table. We have to reform them. Left to me, when you are in difficulties, you sell assets. Government must divest its assets. Companies like ECG must be sold. But don't sell it to individuals. Sell it to the pension funds. It gives them more sustainable thing other than you forcing them into this. So even if you force them into this and rather trade it off, look at the capital you may get back. You may actually get the money back as cash flow from asset sale. And that alone can actually significantly deal with this, your existing debt profile. There are a lot of asset government wants to hold on to. And you know why politicians want to hold on to? Because they seek rent in there. Economic rent. When PDS took over ECG, what did we see? Collections went up. Their meter cost was less than half what ECG was paying. Meanwhile, the staff were the same. And the MD of PDS was a former ECG MD. But when he was there under ECG, he couldn't do it. But when he was there under PDS, he was doing it and changing it because his skin was now in the game. These institutions must all be sold because they create waste and burden. That every percent loss is about $1 billion, it's about 100 million cedis. You are throwing that about 3-4 billion every year out of ECG alone. Go to other sectors. Go to Cocoa Board. Go to Cocoa Board. See how they've loaded the place, the way they run the place. That is why they keep posting losses. How can you continue posting losses when you're a monopoly? And then, school ben alcohol. Tell now I have to go.
But just a quick one. I saw something that Franklin Kujo posted on his Facebook. It says, you owe me money, and this is very instructive. You owe me money. You unilaterally decided to vary repayment terms to almost zero value. I see you are living like an Arabian prince. I ask you to live like the ordained debtor you have become and pay me my money. You asked me to help you identify the list of expensive items you're planning to buy, yet again, with other people's money, so you can forego them to pay me. Well, we'll see.
Very instructive, and I mean, he's one of the conveners of the IBF. It couldn't have been put any better. And that is what it is. We worry about how our president can shower in the plane. That's the country in which we are in. Yes, still we are broke. You don't have money to pay your debtors, but you have money to spend. That's why I say that we are not broke that we can't pay our debtors. We are broke, but we don't want to change our lifestyle. So because we don't want to change our lifestyle, we can't pay our debtors. That is the simple fact. President Kufuor, what was he flying in? BA, British Airways. Have we forgotten? Have we forgotten? President J.J. Rawlings, it was a Pajero he used to drive in. Which of the ministers today will you give a Pajero for them to accept? So it's one of the provisions and recommendations we are making. The CAPEX, some of the portions in there, they should have it. The non-ABFA one has to be halved. The foreign finance one must be halved. We can't continue like this.
Is it your understanding, sorry, Senyo, that's my final question. Is it your understanding that the demands you're making of government is contingent on how this technical committee go, or regardless, it's still a no-no?
Look, there's a sacrifice that everybody must make as individuals.
Okay.
While we are bashing government, we too as individuals must start taking our responsibility onto the top line, on the revenue line of government. which is the taxes. We have to look at our tax compliance regime. And then it still comes back to government. You have to boost your revenue. You have to cut down your expenses. When you are broken, you owe people you have to pay. So let's see that. You have made a provision in there. But the same government, when GRA gets up and goes to start doing invigilation and sees that somebody's VAT declaration has shot up by 1,000%, instead of you encouraging them to continue, empowering them to continue, you come and say for political reasons, these people are agitating, so please, let's cancel it. And you want to make money from where? And we all as citizens must take responsibility to also start honoring our part of the bargain. Because you can't see, we 3 or 4 of us can sit here and be shouting and shouting and shouting. But meanwhile, when the cargo is coming from the port, all of us are looking at ways to cross the thing. You understand? You see, the problem in Ghana, this problem is a reflection of our democracy. I've been saying that corruption is the currency of our democracy. That corruption has eaten us one, and we are where we are. The politician is corrupt. The individual average Ghanaian is also corrupt. You understand? We're all corrupt. We're either stealing from the state, and the politician is also stealing from the state, and we all shout that the politician is stealing from us. But everybody does it in small ways. You go to a place, you want to pay without VAT receipt. We all know it. So look, it's time for us to use this opportunity to reset our approach to things. Government must reset its behavior, must conscientize the citizenry. All of us must align together. Let's work with government to also fix it. But they must lead the way. They must lead the way. So I still end with my thing as usual. Exodus 5:1. Please, let my people go. Yapon.
Senyo should not have.
But that's Mr. SENYO HOSI. He's the convener of the Bond Forum, and that's. Okay, you have a question.
Yeah, no, not a question.
Just a quick one. I'm told we have to take a break. It's just a minute. We'll take a break. Okay, so welcome back. This is Inside Pages. SENYO HOSI has agreed to grant us another 2 minutes. There's a question that Mr. EDGAR WIREDU intends to ask him. Once he's done answering that question, you'll be taking leave of us. EDGAR, you said you want to ask me a question.
Well, not the question per se, but I think some clarity on certain issues, because the position we have here is that whatever the government has presented as the 2023 budgets are estimates,
right,
and they are not actuals.
True.
What it simply means is that you are expecting a certain revenue to enable you execute what you intend doing for the period.
True.
So if capital expenditure has gone up by a certain percentage, as my brother is saying that, look, why increase it when you know that if you maintain what you had the previous year, this issue of your debt business will not even arise, because you can use that money to solve all these problems. Good. The other thing is this, that by increasing it, instead of we to maintain the position we are, or we have to reduce the deficit, having increased it, then the deficit is also what? Going up.
True.
Okay, good. But as I said, now the question for me is this. We all know that all the budgets that have been put in place, we have never actually realized those total revenues.
Absolutely.
We have never realized that. And to that extent, some areas have never even received probably 3/4 of their allocated funds.
Yeah.
Now, I've been trying to find out this, and later I'll look at Joe's presentation. My brother, the question is this, as I was discussing with you. What is government's expected revenue averagely for the month? Expected revenue for the month. What is the expected expenditure for the month? Now let's look at how much the government would have paid for January, February, March on maturities plus interest, only interest, and then we will now have to juxtapose and see where those kind of cuttings, or should I say savings, can be made so the consumer does not really suffer. Because I think as a technical committee or the meetings that are going on, all these things need to be brought. Unfortunately, we sit today and some of these, because what you have in the budget are, should I say, the cumulative, the total.
Yeah.
We don't have the breakdowns. So in order for us to get to understand the real picture, we need some of these informations to help us make any kind of, should I say, judgments or arguments, let me put it that way, as to what needs to be done. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I understand that, but there are two sides to this. So because government's budgets are annualized, the cash flow for government, they really vary. In the very first quarter, there's quite some heavy expectation because of corporate taxes supposed to actually flow in. So some provisions will be done. You know, there's quite some expected heavy flow at some point. Then you have a bit of a break. Some flows from the revenue also cut across the entire year. So like the income you are getting from petroleum
Taxes and
it
all
will always, it's a month-on-month thing. It also varies, but it's pretty stable across. So the cash flows can be done that way. But government doesn't bother too much because it chases what you see more as its bridge financing, that is what you do the T-bills for. So when you go for your T-bills, the T-bills help you to deal with your short-term gap because in another while, you come in and the money will come. So you'll be able to just retire it or cover as well as cover the cost of the T-bill. That's why in the budget, again, you also have the provisions for the cost of the T-bill, which is more like government's bridge finances. You have a draft position because you're not going to have your flows, your cash all come at one time.
Exactly.
You don't have all your expenditure come at one time. You can average it out. The easiest to do that you see will be almost the compensation part, which you divide by 12, because it's practically a monthly based kind of compensation. You know, but the others have different heavy flows, which vary.
That I agree.
And it becomes quite complicated.
But that is what I'm saying. That you see, we have data.
But at MOF, at the Ministry of Finance, that quarterly planning is there.
No, and I'm saying, we need all that information to agree to what you are proposing. It is when we have those information, then we can see that really you have a case. But when we are not informed with those things, seriously, we would go.
I can understand the perturbation. I can understand the issue there. You know, but at some point, you just have to trust the economists.
Absolutely.
Knowing very well that figures, data always massage.
Yes,
we need to get the real situation because you cannot always rely on them.
Right.
I agree.
Yes,
I agree.
We need to get the actuals.
I mean, you see,
we have data for the past 3-4 years, which has actually told us what actually goes in on daily basis. So we use that to do
we
the
can feel the pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one key thing I get from Edgar is the need for us to be a lot more transparent about data in our country. But in the middle of opacity, a lot of massaging happens. A lot of abuse happens. So light is required. If we were required to report all these things you are saying, there'll be a lot more visibility. Look, go to the cocoa board that is creating problems today. The last financials you see on their website is 2019. Which year are we in?
Thank you very much. That's SENYO HOSI. He's the convener of the Individual Bondholders Forum. And he's been with us in the last 40 minutes explaining to us exactly what their concerns with the government is and what they expect the government to do for them. Remember that a technical committee of which they are supposed to bring a representative, and then you also have the Pensioners Forum. They also bring up a representative. And then you have you have another group, it has escaped me. So we're going to have 3 reps from their group, and that will be represented we'll also be meeting government rep to form that technical committee that will be looking into the concerns or the issues that have been raised by these, I call them creditors, basically. Anyway, so here we are. We're back. I do have Mr. Joe Jackson still with us here with DLX Finance. He's the Director of Operations, and also Mr. EDGAR WIREDU. He's a insurance marketer and a financial analyst. Both of them are with us here. We have the next 40 minutes to wrap up on the show, and for the next program to come on. And so I'll start with Mr. EDGAR WIREDU because he hasn't really had his turn to do his presentation yet. But here's the thing, Mr. EDGAR WIREDU, I mean, from where you sit, what do you make of how government has so far handled this debt exchange?
Well, I mean, no one needs to tell you, right? That attitude of I know it all, that attitude of it's like you don't respect others because, look, this is what I want to do. And then when the agitations come in, now before you want to call people, okay, you come and then let's talk. as someone will say, common sense approach. You want to do something, you have to discuss first. It's like you say, everything starts from the micro. It's like you in your home, right? You want to do something, what do? You get your wife involved, depending on the age of your kids. You think that, okay, you want to bring them involved. This is what I have in plans, this and things, ideas. But here is the situation that ever since this government came up, everything, it is me. Everything it is me. Then people will agitate, make noise. Look, what you do will backfire. We'll do this. You go, you hit the wall, then you come back. I remember at the point in time in Parliament, you said luxury vehicle tax. Yep. You were advised on it, whatever it is, backfired. Good. Today you come, you say road tolls. People tell you whatever it is, backfire. Then now you want to, and as we sit today, we don't even know when it's going to take place, right? So many things that you do, you decide on your own. But I think that we need to sit down all over again and put everything aside. It's about time we see ourselves as Ghanaians and not as they and us, we and them. Because whatever the government is doing today, the government is not going to be in power forever. A new government will come in. And then when the new government comes in, it says, well, I was not party to this. So far as I'm not party to it, I have my own ideas. I'm going to, and everything boils down to the ordinary consumer. Is the consumer who suffers. Today, we are talking about, the cocoa industry. We all seen what has happened. But, there are certain things that are so disappointing. When Ghana started cocoa, Côte d'Ivoire did not know cocoa. And today, Côte d'Ivoire is able to post $7 billion of cocoa. Right. And we are sitting down struggling with even $1 billion. How serious? Did we ever know that potential of cocoa? And we had always said that it is actually the backbone of the economy. What is the situation on the ground? Look at all the mess that is going on in the cocoa sector, or let's say the cocoa board. And yes, still, their executives are riding in V8s, enjoying free petrol, all manner of allowances, including hairdo, lipstick, shoelace, allowances, and all that. Is this something that, as a country, we need to entertain? We got to be serious about them. But let's look at some of these issues relating to the debt person. That's the question I was just trying to pose to my brother. And now, you see, Joe, yes, your forensic analysis, fine. But I still think that some things are missing. Because what happens is that when you are being given those 999%, right, they are dropping. And the interest that you are supposed to be earning, is it still on the 100% or it is on the drop? Okay. I mean, these are some of the things that I would have expected that. Because one of the things that I always say is that when we are on programs like this, it's not everybody who is a finance or technical person that would grasp easily some of these things. So you need to break it down to the barest minimum so that everyone watching would understand that, look, it has dropped. So whatever you are going to get is on the reducing balance or what, and you try to, but then when you make it sound like that, it's as if still the 100% is running and you are getting that 999% interest.
I'm
so
sorry.
So 9% on what?
No, I'm sorry. If you can just take a second, sure. I could show that
right.
here.
On
because
the screens.
On the screens, yes.
Okay, so whilst I take...
okay, good, yeah.
So I will read some of the WhatsApp messages that have come through so that whilst we wait for Mr. Joe Jackson to...
Yeah. We are here.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, the thing is this. For bonds, say, maturing after 2023,
okay,
you're being given 9%, 9%, 9%. And remember that we said it's a bond. They only pay you when it matures.
Yes.
Okay. 9% and then 8% up to 33. Now, this 9% is going to be paid for this 9% that is dropping in 2027 of your 100 cedis. They will pay you 24, 25, 26, 27. It is finished. Done. You have 9% that is also dropping in 28. They will pay you 25, 26, 27 at 9.15. Then it drops off.
9.15% on the interest. That's
9.15% on this 9%
that is the point I am making. That you
so it is only 9.15 on the 9 CDs.
That is the point I am making. But you see,
not on the full amount.
Exactly.
That was what he wanted me to explain.
That's the clarity you are seeking.
Yes, that was the clarity
you
was
need to let the people understand that the 9%.
That even makes the picture grimmer.
That's what Edgar.
Let them get
because
it. Because
obviously 9% of 100 cities is not the same as 9% of 9 cities.
Exactly.
And so, and as soon as he said it, and I decided to go back to explain because maybe it wasn't.
Because I was also under the impression it was going to be 9% on the principal.
No,
which is 100.
9% on the 9 CDs.
Oh,
9.5% on
the off-stage car.
That's the point that you say. Explain. You just break it down well because
the diagram was there, but
yeah.
I was pushed for time.
Right.
You may think it is on the principal.
On the principal, yes.
Assuming as if the 100% is still there, and you are getting just the 99.
The impression was that you were holding the 100 cities constant.
So
the 100 cities has not been held constant.
No, the 100 cities have been broken
into pieces.
Exactly.
And each one is being dealt with separately.
Whoa.
So that was let it be clear there. So now when you look at this situation on the ground, right? The question that comes out is this, as my brother said, in the budget, right, no matter what it is, we still need a certain level of capital expenditure, no matter what it is, right? As population is growing, we need some infrastructure to correspond to the growth in numbers.
Yes.
That one you cannot compromise.
Yes.
Because we are growing at a certain rate. We will need more hospitals. We will need more schools to accommodate the growing, not forgetting the fact that out of our population, based on the 2021 population, about 30 million Ghanaians, 18 million are above 18 years. Okay? So you want to look at the remaining 12 million. You want to look at those who are about 6 years. And those who will turn 6 and what have you, and will have to be entering schools. We are growing at a rate of 2.15% annually. So the number of human beings that are adding to the system, can the basic or the current infrastructure support us, right? So you want to look at all this and say there's a need for some capital, expenditure to take place. So whatever percentage...
But that is under an ideal situation.
It is not a question of an ideal situation. If the people are not healthy, because you see, you cannot say that, okay, let's all ask for our money. Let's all ask for our money.
Yes.
But we are sick. Where is the infrastructure? Where is the hospital? Where are we going? Government, give us our money. We've gotten our money. We are sick. We are the same people complaining about the fact that we have to buy drugs.
But you see...
No, just a minute.
But you see, Edgar, this proposition or this stance that you've taken is based on a certain assumption that every government expenditure makes sense.
Wait, not necessarily.
I don't get the point.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Okay. Edgar and I agree with Edgar to a point.
Yes.
That there is some minimal capital expenditure we require.
Yes.
But the challenge you have is the level of increment over last year.
Yes.
In a situation where things are so tough.
Yes.
In a situation where you are asking SENYO to give up quite a lot. Because let me tell you what all this is. That domestic debt exchange is a tax that is going to be paid by people who lent money to the government.
True.
The issue you have to understand is this. If you owe, and all of us owe, then you, the government, must take a lead in reducing the budget. Listen, as for some level of domestic debt exchange, it has to happen. Because one of the things that, unfortunately, SENYO has left, that was when he said we can pay our debt is this. When you take salaries and you take interest payments, it's already over 100%. So whatever we do, we have to cut down on debt payments because we can't reasonably go to people and cut their central salaries. In fact, to make it worse, we've added 30% to the salary bill.
Let me just come out.
No, but look, Mr. WIREDU, I totally understand that whilst we are thinking about ensuring debt sustainability, we must make sure that it doesn't affect capex. I get that point.
Yeah.
A level of capex.
Some level of capex.
Yeah.
But the question has often been asked, which is, how about the other expenditures which we can do something about?
You know, one of the funny
Remember
things.
that this government has been largely accused of spending on consumption expenditure. Okay, they've been doing a lot more consumption expenditure, and that has to do with the number of people who have been employed. I mean, SENYO, for instance, has talked about the number of persons who have been employed in state-owned enterprises, and so on and so forth. We're also looking at some social intervention programs that can be taken a second look at. And that's why we remember that smartly, the finance minister says, you claim that there are some cuts that I can do in the budget. Come and show me. Come and tell Ghanaians that you say I should cut those. Yes, that's what the finance minister said. Because I suspect the finance minister acknowledges that there are certain things that can be cut from the budget, but he doesn't want to take the lead.
No, but that doesn't make sense. Who should take the lead?
No, wait a minute.
That's why the technical committee is being formed.
No, you see,
so that it becomes the technical committee says.
No, let me
not
just
I didn't say, but the
Listen.
technical committee says for us to be able to get an IMF program, we have to do A, B, C, D. So bear with me. I'm not responsible for this.
No,
it's the technical
all right.
committee.
I mean, you make the
That's
point there, but the point is this: that, as I said, from all that I've been hearing, right, emphasis is drawn more on the word capital expenditure.
Right.
That is what the emphasis has been drawn on.
It's been the
Yes.
bellwether of this reduction.
And that is what I'm saying, that no, let's be careful with that because we need it. And don't forget the fact that some of these figures, right, as we see them bloating like that, it is not that they are bloating because maybe it is about 100% or something like that. Don't forget that the value of your currency is also a factor.
True.
Because at a point in time, what a 5 million could do for you, because if as at 2021, okay, let's say even 2022 January, you had, 6 cedis to $1, right? So maybe you are talking about 6 million cedis to $100 million. Today, you are talking about what, 12, 13? It's about 24, 26 million.
Yes.
So your budget would automatically go up exponentially. The figure will give you that picture, but it's actually the value of your currency that has made it so. So some of these things, we have to look at it, you know, and we need to pinpoint certain things. Of course, I mean, we are not happy with the kind of, I don't want to use the word frivolous, but totally unnecessary expenditure on the government's team, right? If somebody, like my brother SENYO says, somebody finds it necessary to come and stand in parliament and say that the president has to fly in a jet, that he can have a shower, such an insult to Ghanaians. I mean, these are the things that you have to sit down and ask yourself, is this worth the sort of a minister? You know, you are sitting down and then you have to be, apart from the, all kinds of expenditure that is going on, we don't need that. All right? Some of the things that we are talking about complete. Why do you still think that there's a need for you to reduce the fuel coupons to government appointees? Just cut it off.
Or cut the number of appointees.
Just cut it off. There's nothing like giving anyone 50% of what he used to get. The issue of free coupons should not be part of our vocabulary. It's out of the way. Okay?
How much will all of this save us?
That is where they come in to tell you that, right? Even if they do, that amount is insignificant. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Irrespective of the fact that it's insignificant, stop it. Because you see, you are killing the ordinary man. The ordinary man's money you don't want to give to him. But you are giving it to a government official to buy fuel. I mean, come on, what sense is it? My money is there. You say you seize my money, you won't give it to me. But then you use that money to give to a government official to buy the fuel. You get it?
Please.
You see,
leadership.
You let him come. No, maybe he wants to that.
I want to add to his.
Okay, sure.
Leadership requires you to lead by example.
Right.
Leadership requires you to set the right tone so that you have the moral authority to tell us,
To burden share.
to sell an austerity budget to us. That requires that, you see, I don't care
But we've
whether cutting number of ministers will drop it by 0.1%.
But it's,
Do it.
but it's a signal it sends out.
It's a signal it sends out.
Okay.
Hop over to Cote d'Ivoire, right? They dropped the number of ministers.
True.
They dropped the number of ministers to signal to everybody that we are burden sharing. Now, one of the most emotive things that Senyo talked about is the sense that, why are you asking me to carry the whole burden?
Well, but you see, let me just put it back. I mean, these issues we have talked and talked and talked over. I'll say it's overflogged. And still, it is not happening. When the minister talked about the fact that V8s are going to be packed, they are still on the roads. We are seeing them. Who is checking? Who is making sure that they are not? They are still there. You get it? So it is like we don't even seem to have a certain sense of seriousness on if it has to be stopped. It must be nothing. Something is going on.
But Edgar, back to the issue you raised about capital expenditure.
No, but I'm making a point here. You see,
Okay.
so far, so many things are just not, the transparency is not there. We are not getting the right picture to understand exactly what we are talking about. If you are talking about the year 2028, 55%, how do you call it, debt to GDP. What is that 55% debt to GDP?
By 2027.
What figures are we talking about? Are we expecting our GDP to be around maybe $800 million, for which it should go down to 55%? Or it's going to be 600 billion, for which it will go down to 55%? Or it is going to be 200? I mean, there must be something concrete. What steps are we putting in place? Because what you are doing, is like you are looking at the now by cutting people's money. But that should not be the case.
So you're saying the denominator is more important than numerator?
Not even that. The point I'm making is that
the denominator here is the size of the economy.
No, not necessarily. What I'm saying is that we must have it clearly when you say all that we're doing, 55% of GDP.
Must achieve a
So
certain
the
target.
55% of GDP,
Yes.
what is the GDP for which it should be 55?
Yes.
We need to know the exact figure.
So that's
Just to-
yeah. So we're saying the same song.
No,
In fact, we're
and
saying
number
from the
two,
same,
number
book.
two, the
Yes.
point of the matter is that why do you think it is only this way that we have to go? Why don't you think of generating revenue? And the generating revenue is, why don't we get into a productive sector so that we don't need to wait for this 2038, 20 we don't need to. Instead of what we are projecting, because it's like as if you are looking at what you have today and you've done your analysis and you think it should be the case. No. What are you going to put in place? Is there a way you can raise out of the normal? Can you raise an additional $2 billion? How are you going to raise that additional $2 billion? Okay, as I always say, if we appreciate the value of the soil, just as I mentioned, if Cote d'Ivoire has been able to grow its cocoa, and last year they made 7 billion, you are struggling for 1 billion. What are you going to do? Are you going to make sure that you are going to stop all this nonsense of the galamsey, the pollution of water, reclaim those lands and bring it up so that at least within the next 3-4 years, we will also be getting about 4 to 5 billion, right? What are you doing? There are things that your country has the competitive advantage over because you have arable land and you can use it wisely. Are we going to stop the importation of onions and rather export onions? Like last 2 months ago, Philippines is asking for onions, seriously, worth billions of dollars. If we have found a need and we also went into that area, we would not claim some money. So you are not just sitting down and looking at that financial space or trying to kill people because of their savings. No. How are we going to get out of it? And if we are serious about getting to the drawing board, we don't have to wait for all these unnecessary yes that you've given us. We can get there. So the clue, as we're sitting, is that I would appreciate the technical committee going there. It is not just a question of we won't agree, but then what are we going to put on the table so we get out of that? That for me is important because it's like we have hit it all right. what are the solutions? Is this solution that the government proposes, is that the only way? No. Because what the government is doing is that he is trying to restructure his debt. Okay? And we are saying that, yes, fine, you want to restructure your debt, but then what have you thought about the revenue side? Okay? If you're, for the past 6 years...
But what do you want the government to do, Edgar? Look, the government raises VAT by 2.5%. We say, hey!
No!
The government is restructuring e-levy. We say, hey!
You see, as someone says that it is not, you see, the nose jacket fits everybody. If the developed countries are dependent on taxes to develop the economy, your country is an amorphous one. You cannot say you also want to go that same way. Because you see, when you squeeze the tax out of the people, you kill them. You kill them, and that is exactly what is happening today. Look, today you talk about property rates. You have not even started, but you are going to do it. If you bring in the property rate, which is a good tax, all right, but don't forget that landlords will pass it over to the tenants. And rent bills or rent advances or whatever is going to go high. Has that ordinary man got that capacity? So don't rely so much on taxes, because when you do tax, you are squeezing the water from the human being. You should be revenue generating. So, for instance, all these SOEs, if they were really worth their salt, being there, are you not sure that the dividends that they will pay to the government would have avoided all these unnecessary taxes? But they are not working to that level. Get the human beings out of office. Because how can you have people in office and every day they are running at a loss? It tells you they are not capable of being in that office. And as I've always said, Afriye Akoto brought what? Planting for foods and jobs. Right? Okay, plant the food for jobs and let's eat. Get into planting for exports. Get into planting for export. See how we sit down today as a country, and then we are talking about the fact that now by June or July, you are going to cut rice, rice, or you're going to put a ban on rice importation and things. Over 20 years ago, right, there was a whole project, Aveyime Rice Mill. We messed the whole project up. We messed the whole project up. There's a $20 million Juliet Cotton quality grain. You know, we messed it up. And today we are talking about we want to stop rice importation. If we are taking that project serious 20 years ago, what would have happened? A government starts something today, another government comes and says, me, I was not part of it, so I don't want to know. Kufuor started housing projects. He leaves office, Mills comes, we are going for a different one, XTS. And then all the ones that Kufuor did, abandoned. Then the next thing, everything is in a mess. This one goes over and then they say, wait, then this one to come, Sagleme. Whatever it is like, and then a mess, right? Haven't we gotten to that level that as a country, we all have to sit down, regardless of the fact that this is CPP or NDC or MPP or whatever? Can't we agree? So, for instance, this debt restructuring program that the government is getting into, why don't you bring everybody on board so that tomorrow, if the government changes, at least they were all parts of the decision so they know how to roll it out? Because in 2028, certainly Ken Ofori-Atta wouldn't be there, right? Nana Akufo-Addo wouldn't be there, okay? But then you are going to do something, and stakeholders, what are the stakeholders? The whole nation. You've not brought the people on board. So if they come out tomorrow and say, we are not part of it because we had different ideas, so we are not going to continue it, then you are going to turn the country back again with somebody's ideas, and it's not going to help us.
Let me read something from Kamal Amasama, brother. Sorry, I have tons of messages. Let me just do quick, and then I'll come to Mr. Joe Jack saying, Mr. Joe Jack saying, one of the things that I'd need you to help me think through is that do you think that perhaps the government underestimated the pushback from these key stakeholders, the individual bondholders? Did they underestimate it? If they did, it's that the price they're paying for that. And also, number two, the announcement of the debt exchange program, the timing. I've also heard people say that perhaps government should have engaged these key stakeholders before going ahead to announce the debt exchange program, even though the announcement of the debt exchange program had some impact on our macro targets. We saw the CD appreciating. We saw the numbers were beginning to look much better than they were. Okay, and so the timing on the engagement. So the timing of the engagement, and also whether government underestimated the kind of pushback it's getting from its individual bondholders. And again, we also noticed that the institutional bondholders were quiet. In fact, it appears that most of them were going to sign off, or were going to sign these agreements until these individual bondholders began to resist. And now all of them are saying, well, it looks like we are not interested. So those are the things I need you to think about, to think through whilst I look at these messages. So this one from Kamal Amasaman Bruni, he says, Moro, the problem with the debt exchange program is a lack of proper stakeholder engagement from the onset by the finance minister. When people are bound to lose the investment, persuasive posture must be adopted so as to calm them down. Additionally, government must also cut down on some expenditure so that the people will feel the need to also sacrifice their quota. My greetings to the hardworking mayor of Ho, Municipal Assembly, Honorable Divine R.K. Boson, I believe, Kamal Amasaman Bruni sends that message. I want to say good morning to you. Now, this one here from Jason Tutu, sounds very familiar, doesn't it? He says that he's also a financial analyst. He says, good morning, Mr. Moro. If government is not forthcoming in the matter of cutting expenditure, the analysts can help. Clearly, by our laws, they can disaggregate mandatory expenditure from the discretionary ones, and I totally agree with you, Jason, on that. Once this is done, we can know the component sum in the budget that cannot be touched. We can now debate on the percentage of the discretionary expenses that can be realistically cut and redirected towards alleviating their crisis, or this crisis. When we do this objectively, I believe a significant amount could be redirected from government profligacy towards the payment of debts due to struggling Ghanaians. I'll take two more and then I'll come back to you, Mr. Joe Jackson. This one here says, you chose to take your sole decision as a government. Now the effect of that is in place and you want to include others. How logical is that? Only God knows where we are to land as a country. Mr. Joe Jackson, God bless you and your team on this program for always speaking the truth. Good morning from Rico in Cape Coast. Now, General Ortega says, good morning, Aldo. It's fiscal recklessness that's created this problem we're battling with currently, and it continues unabated. In spite of the government embarking on a moral suasion to resolve the problem, with the same attitude, I urge everybody to reject the DDE. The only condition to accept the DDE should be resignation of entire government and refund of commission by Ken and Charles until that they should forget about it. And it goes on and on and on. We can appreciate the value of the blah blah. The government must help here. I'm Eugene from Able Kumar. And Isaac Oini from Kumasi says, for political appraisal and party interest, no political party would like to involve a party in their business. And this is what is killing our democracy in this country. I'll read some of the other messages that you've sent to us. Don't worry, I'll read it. Some of you are a bit apprehensive, thinking that I won't, but I will. Mr. Joe Jackson. So my first
before
question
Joe comes in, let me put
please.
a few things.
Okay.
First. Currently, we have something that is looming over Ghana.
Okay.
And I'm surprised that none of our people have even spoken about it. People have started rejecting our cocoa.
Really?
Oh, yes. A few people have started rejecting our cocoa. And then the main guys, the Cadbury, the Nestle guys, have now moved into India.
To buy cocoa from there?
Not that to buy cocoa, but they have started a business with India, and India is now growing organic cocoa. They are rejecting our cocoa.
What's the reason?
Because your cocoa is
galamsey
and what have you. It's mixing your cocoa. Now, the next thing is this, that we have always been waiting for cocoa syndicated loans to shore up our
currency.
I tell you, within the next 2-3 years, nobody is going to give us any syndicated loan because no one is going to buy our cocoa again.
Because they won't trust the inflows from the.
No, because your cocoa, the quality of your cocoa now, your cocoa is poisonous. Okay, so we are not going to buy. And you see, as I'm surprised that till date, the people within that area are not aware that this is what is happening. Some of these, we have some of these things in this report by these world think tank guys from Washington, the way they go about some of these things. And it's very, very clear.
Wow.
I tell you. So you see, as I'm saying, the problem we have is having wrong people sitting at sensitive positions and taking decisions and doing things for Ghana. If we do not stop these things and get it clear, we are really going to be in in a catastrophic situation that we wouldn't know where to turn.
Okay.
There are so many issues that are going wrong today, and sadly, you don't hear them, as if they don't know, or it's like maybe they don't care, because maybe someone thinks that with plenty money he can survive, but you lie. It will hit you.
Before I answer this, you've now heard admittedly anecdotal evidence, stories that when some of the farmers are mixing fertilizer, they buy pure water. because they can't use their streams of water to mix fertilizer. Yes. But
That's going to increase the cost of production.
That is not just the cost.
The quality.
That tells you the quality of water that is going
I get that.
to the cocoa.
Yes, and so that's the reason why they're using sachet water.
Yes, so they use sachet water to mix fertilizer. But let's go to this. There are other jurisdictions where this has happened. Jamaica, Argentina. The one clear thing in those jurisdictions has been engagement, and even the length of time that this engagement has gone on. What is striking about our whole process was, number one, the lack of engagement, and two, that we try to bring this process to a conclusion this quickly. Partly because we waited too long before asking for help. So that in every other jurisdiction, there's engagement.
I mean, that's a common sense approach.
Not only engagement,
Look at the Jamaican experience, for instance, there were lots of engagement.
in other jurisdictions, governments have even been known to fund the groups of bondholders to come together and pay for the legal costs, etc., so that they could sit down and engage. Right? That I owe you. I can't pay. I want the two of you to come together. You need a lawyer. Right? I'll say, in fact, you know what? To make this easier, I will even pay your lawyer so that you come together, you agree, you look at my numbers. And some of the numbers Edgar is asking about, the SENYO Hosi was talking about, we should be able to look at those numbers, disaggregate them, and say, what can we do? We are talking now about a minimum level of capex, capital expenditure. What's the minimum level? I don't know. Do you know?
No.
Do the bondholders know? So that is definitely striking. And what makes it worse are two things. Number one, the government had no moral authority in this case because of admittedly not wanting to cut its own lifestyle. Number two, you see, there was a reason why the first instance it excluded individuals. It included corporates because most of these corporates, one, there was a regulator who could call you, say, go and sign. Two, the institutions, most of them had a stake in the financial stability of the economy. And also you were dealing with groups of people who were fairly knowledgeable and very literate in these financial matters. And there were small groups of people. So when you said corporates, you're dealing with the CEO of GCB, the CEO of EcoBank, the head of the Association of Bankers, and these are all knowledgeable people. And you could put them in a room with the central bank holding a big stick and waving it. Same for the insurance companies. The number of people we had to deal with were not more than 100 key persons. Then the labor unions raised a flag about the effect on pensions. And so you took out pension holders. When you took out pension holders, you now had a hole in your plan.
Yes.
So
has to be filled.
You filled it by calling on the most troublesome constituency ever, which is the individuals. The individuals are less literate. The individuals they all come from different persuasions.
They are amorphous.
And they are amorphous. Yes. And you had not engaged with them at all. You just decided that you include individuals without engaging them and then presented them with a plan. No wonder we are where we are.
No, but let
government
me
perhaps thought that engagement would delay the
let
process.
me make a very, you see, the individuals who are the bulk, they are in different areas as well.
True.
But then the question is this. So if the likes of SENYO, the likes of Martin Pebu and all those people had not
Franklin
have not decided to champion this,
What would have happened?
what would have happened? So that tells us that we as individuals, we need to sit down and begin to rethink about the things that, you see, normally you think that something is happening somewhere, it doesn't affect you. When it begins to affect you, now before you want to buy.
But I want to interject this, and it's very important. Remember that even before this extension, when corporates were told to do it, there had been 2 extensions.
Yes.
Nobody had signed.
No, because everything was shrouded. Nobody knew exactly.
But whatever it is, they hadn't signed.
The debt, what do you call it, the exchange program, even to date, people have just heard what it is like on documents.
But for the reaction of the individual bondholders, don't you think that the institutional bondholders would have signed?
We are still asking today about that financial stability fund. What is in there? What document?
What rate will you charge
The
me?
document is not ready.
Exactly. So how do you expect people to jump to it? We need to know. So, how could a government, you come and announce something sometime in this 5th December, and to date, those information is still not out. How do you expect people to jump to it? But I want to make one quick one when you talk about the insurance industry. The insurance industry itself, you see, especially when you talk about the life section, don't forget, they are also, you see, that the institution as a corporate entity exists. And there are individual human beings who are also in that system. So when the life insurance companies are talking, it is not the corporate life. It's pensioners' funds, okay? It is people's life savings. They are also individuals and not the corporate like is the insurance companies. No. So if you are talking about pension holders fund, the same pension holders are in the insurance industry, that the life section. So it is, so you need to see it in that area and not think that it is just the corporate. Okay? If you come to the general, fine, I can understand you. But when it comes to the life, it is purely on individual basis. And it is not there as, what do you call it, a group or whatever.
It's not a homogeneous group.
It is individuals. Individuals. Just like you have the individuals in the pension scheme. It is also an individual.
It's like a collective investment scheme.
That is what I'm saying, that you see, because it goes in the name of an institution, it doesn't mean it is the institution's money. You get it?
It means that even in dealing with insurance company, you have to deal with all these groups.
That is what I'm saying, that there are, that especially when it comes to the life, right? But most importantly, there's something that we must also look at. Prior to this, we were made to understand that SNIT was going to collapse by the year 2037. Depending on the way things were going, SNIT may collapse by 2037. And if today, you have decided that about 540 million cedis use SNIT, that one you are taking it as well. Then what's going to happen to SNIT?
Because SNIT is a 9% holder of the domestic debt.
Yeah.
No, 0.9.
0.9. No, it's 9%.
9%. Yes, 9% holder.
Yeah.
Before,
I saw the document.
Before domestic debt restructuring, based on the data and the way things are happening, SNIT would have a difficulty in surviving around 2037. Okay? That was before debt restructuring. And then now, debt restructuring has come in. So the money that they were also putting in investment to generate revenue so that they can be paying whatever, you have taken that money. So now the 2037, we don't know the backslide. Whether it will be 20...
I think from everything you have said, it looks like the government doesn't have any option. It has to leave these guys alone.
You see? And number two, the insurance industry has the
I will answer. Let Edgar finish speaking.
And the insurance industry...
Unfortunately, we have just a minute.
You see, the insurance industry
just a minute,
too,
unfortunately, yes.
if they are very smart, they will survive this nonsense.
Okay.
If they are very smart.
All right.
Because, well, they have about 1 point something billion in there. but they are worth more than the 1-point-something billion.
Okay.
If they are very smart,
You
they
know what
can
to do.
survive it.
Big Joe,
Yeah.
just 1 minute. That's 30 seconds if you can.
Listen, somebody has to pay the bill. Somebody has to pay.
Right.
And the good thing about the engagement is that they are talking.
Okay.
But whatever it is, someone has to pay.
Well, we'll see who pays the bill, whether the government will pay the bill or Senyo Hosei and his group will pay the bill. Wait to see. Remember that. Well, certainly not me. Well, but remember that the government has up to the end of this month to sign off this IMF deal. And so we'll see how it goes. My name is Aldumoro. Thanks for watching. This has been another edition of Inside Pages. Have a great weekend.